All right, people. Make sure everybody can hear me and see me okay. I think that we should be good. Okay, we're good on YouTube. We are good on Rockfin. It looks like we are indeed good on Twitter. So let's go ahead and get this show on the road. What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikase Sukasa. And of course, as always, I'm your humble host, Niko House. Today, we are going to be talking about the effort to make Africa the new battleground for the war on terror. Now, this isn't something that should be considered to be brand new because the US and the Western powers have been meddling in Africa for generations at this point. I mean, a lot of people didn't know how long we had been in Libya. But if you are someone who was maybe raised in a military town, myself living in Fayetteville, North Carolina, then you're familiar with how long exactly Special Forces has been meddling with Libya and trying to overthrow Gaddafi, specifically going all the way back at least until the 90s, even though they finally didn't get to overthrow him until about 2012. So the meddling in Africa isn't something that's new. However, given recent advancements, given the recent effort to basically come out on top in what's been called the Fourth Industrial Revolution, all of a sudden, believe it or not, everybody, all the Western powers are finding a lot of reasons to make Africa the new battleground for the war on terror. I'm sure it has nothing to do with their resources. But to understand exactly why they're choosing Africa to make the battleground of the war on terror, beyond just like the usual, okay, they're just there for the resources, you have to kind of understand what the Fourth Industrial Revolution is. Now, Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum gave us a pretty clear description of what they consider to be the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Schwab, first of all, is the founder and the executive chairman of the Geneva-based WEF. He published a book in 2016 called The Fourth Industrial Revolution and coined the term at the Davos meeting that year. Schwab argued that a technological revolution is underway that is blurring the lines between the physical and digital biological spheres. Simply put, the Fourth Industrial Revolution refers to how technologies like artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, and the Internet of Things are merging with human physical lives. Think of voice-activated assistants, facial ID recognition, or digital healthcare sensors. Schwab argued these technological changes are drastically altering how individuals, companies, and governments operate, ultimately leading to a societal transformation similar to previous revolutions. Now, what does that mean in the case of Africa and AFRICOM and this new reinvigorated war on terror? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if y'all know this, but Africa has a lot of resources. For example, cobalt. Cobalt's extremely important because you don't get Teslas without cobalt. You get what I'm saying? Cobalt is primarily used in lithium-ion batteries that power these vehicles, these electric vehicles that we are seeing rolling out. And obviously, given how much technology has become a part of everyone's life, lithium-ion batteries and lithium-ion in general has become a very, very important resource. Some would say it's almost becoming as equally important as oil as we begin to transfer away, slowly but surely, away from oil, because even if the oil barons don't want us to do so, the writing is on the wall. People are going to go to alternative energy because it is a business. It is a successful business at that. And the thing is, they want to make sure that they get control of that. Very similar to what we're seeing in the marijuana industry, where for some reason they know the writing is on the wall. Marijuana is going to be federally legal at some point. But if you look around the country, there are corporations making their grandest attempt to ensure that they are the ones to get the profit off of it before they allow their lobbyists to allow the Congress people to legalize marijuana federally. By the time it will be federally legalized, they'll have all the power and the control over that particular resource. And it's something similar that we're seeing in Africa with, like, say, a situation like cobalt. So the Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, has 3.6 million tons of cobalt. That is the largest amount of cobalt known to mankind. Second is Australia with 1.4 tons. The problem, of course, then becomes the next one. Third and fourth is Cuba and Russia. 260,000 and 250,000 tons, respectively. Whereas, of course, Congo, once again, has 3.6 million. The problem with cobalt is that everybody needs it. China is currently in position now. They have really the leg up in the lithium triangle and with cobalt now, because they have been positioning themselves through bilateral trade agreements to benefit from that in Africa. These are the facts. And now when you say the first, third, and fourth largest reserves of cobalt in the world are all with countries that the United States currently doesn't have any control over, well, that would make it a little difficult for the United States to lead in the fourth industrial revolution. Correct? Okay. So I want to show you all where they actually called for this fourth industrial revolution, or excuse me, for this war on terror on July 29th, 2021. Make sure I get Terry's book. Can y'all? Oh, let me make sure y'all can hear this too. Kind of important. See, y'all wouldn't even have been able to hear it.
At a conference in Rome, members of the Global Coalition Against ISIL warn the fight is not over. Africa is the new battleground.
Ho proposto di istituire un gruppo di lavoro dedicato all'Africa.
I propose the creation of a working group to identify and halt the terrorist threat of Islamic State in the African continent. We welcome some African countries that are not members of the coalition, such as Burkina Faso, Ghana, and Mozambique, invited as observers.
The armed group is gaining ground in the Sahel and in Mozambique's northern province of Cabo Delgado. Nearly 1 million people have been displaced and 3,000 killed as a result of the fighting that began in 2017 between an ISIL affiliate and Mozambique's security forces. Last week, the 16-member Southern African Development Community announced the deployment of troops to support Mozambique's military in its fight against ISIL.
Our approach rests on the basis that terrorism is a global threat, and if we want to defeat it, we must further our understanding with the prospect of eradicating it from our entire region. I would like to assure you that in Mozambique, we are deeply aware of our responsibilities.
In the Sahel regions of Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, ISIL-affiliated groups are increasing their attacks. That's despite the presence of 14,000 UN troops, the G5 regional coalition, and the support of 5,000 French soldiers.
The Islamic State-owned central leadership, they see their main prospects for the success of their brand as being in Africa. And it's interesting that even as this summit is taking place right now in Rome, only some days ago, the Islamic State's official spokesman released a speech in which he talked about Islamic State affiliates in various parts of the world, and he singled out for praise, in particular, the affiliates of the group in both West and Central Africa.
Fearing a wave of people illegally traveling to Europe, some European countries are joining France by sending troops on the ground to not only fight ISIL, but to disrupt human trafficking and illegal migration routes. For the coalition against ISIL, Africa is now the front line against the armed group. Nicholas Hawk, Al Jazeera.
Okay. Did y'all see a lot of problems with that? Okay, I saw a lot of problems with that. Namely, how are you just gonna openly declare that an entire continent is now the battleground for the war on terror without consulting the rest of the continent, bro? That's my question. And there's one thing that people don't really question when it comes to these declarations that people assume to be true, which is like, oh yeah, ISIS, the central like this, they said that the central institution of ISIS sees Africa as, you know, its battlegrounds of war on terror, or excuse me, its battleground for whatever they are calling it. But then what for why? Why is that? Out of curiosity. I'm genuinely asking because if you form a group, there is a goal. If you launch a mission, there is a goal. There is something that is considered to be a successful mission that you are heading towards. They just woke up one day and said, yeah, we're tired of the Middle East. Let's go to Africa. Now, with some insight on this, because trust me, I'm not the only one who reached this conclusion. We'll have a little bit, this conclusion of confusion that I've reached. There is an African intellectual named Kambale Musavuli, who also gives his take from a personal perspective as somebody who lived in one of the countries that these ISIS-affiliated groups have been trying to disrupt.
Became this powerful force around 2006, 2007, when there was an oil discovery in DRC.
Oh, let me rewind for you.
1990s, and surprisingly, they became this powerful force around 2006, 2007, when there was an oil discovery in DRC. We have a lake called Lake Albert, which has about 2.5 billion barrels of oil. That's a lot of oil in one lake, right? In that lake is at the Congolese border with Uganda. On the Ugandan side, we have a French company that has gotten some of the oil blocks, and the French company is Total, the French oil company. On the DRC side, the development has not unfolded. So whenever you look at the oil block, this is something anyone can actually do. You look at the different oil blocks in the lake, and you look at where the massacres are taking place. It's taking place closely to where the oil is actually found. These rebels are killing civilians. They are putting statements as they are connected to ISIS. They have these videos and so on, civilian. But most interestingly is that there have been a study, but the UN group of experts is a group of researchers who work with the UN Security Council to go find facts on the ground to bring to the Security Council. They have studied the situation with the ADF multiple times, and the last time was just this past month, to actually find out, does the ADF have any connection with ISIS? They've already published 4 reports, and the last one was last month. And they are clear in stating that there is no connection whatsoever. They actually say whatsoever between ISIS and this rebel group. But then you go to the State Department and you look at the statement that the US State Department published. They actually have indexed the DRC as a country with foreign terrorists. That they have said that the DRC harbors an ISIS affiliate, which is also similar to what's happening in Mozambique, right? That they are these ISIS all of a sudden who are so powerful, but they do not take over power of the country, right? They don't go and say we're going to change the government, anything. They just stay in one particular area and continue to massacre people.
So, to surmise what he is saying, he's literally telling y'all that the US and Western powers actually did a research study to figure out whether or not this particular terrorist organization that has called themselves ISIS is actually a part of ISIS. They are not even a little bit. They're not even second cousins, married to somebody's baby daddy twice removed 5 times. They're not affiliated with them at all. Not only that, but they are only hanging out where the oil is. Sounds familiar. Just like in all the countries that we invade in the Middle East. Also, they don't attempt to take over power. So that once again goes back to that claim that we were talking about in the last video that, oh, yeah, the central institution of ISIS is definitely saying that Africa is their next target. It's like the target of what? Now I need everybody to understand. I feel like this is common sense, but let's go ahead and make sure that we understand this. Y'all do know that ISIS does not have the infrastructure to actually refine oil and then sell it on the open market, right? We know that. Okay. So what are they doing there? Well, now that we know, according to this gentleman's testimony, that the United States has now declared the DRC that they are, now I don't know if they call them state-sponsored terrorists, but they say that they are housing terrorists. We know what comes next. The United States invades those countries. Now, if the terrorists just so happen to be right where the oil is, well, you know, the United States loves to protect that primary resource. They get to set up a base around that oil. They get to then control that oil. The control of that oil gets taken out of the hands of the people of the DRC. And oh, by the way, apparently, because of these discoveries, DRC was actually going to become top 2, top 3 in oil distribution as well. Starting to see a little bit of a pattern here. But now we've gone through Mozambique. We've also talked about DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And now we got to take a little step back to July 20th. I'm sure you all remember the U.S. bombed Somalia. And this article here in military.com said that the United States on Tuesday carried out an airstrike in Somalia against the extremist group Al-Shabaab. In a statement, the Defense Department spokeswoman Cindy King said the U.S. Africa Command Forces conducted a single strike against Al-Shabaab near Gakoyo, Somalia. King said the airstrike was carried out to support Somali National Army troops who were under attack by Al-Shabaab. No U.S. forces accompanied the Somalis during the operation. Nobody believes that. But they were remotely advising and assisting from another unidentified location. The part that they are not mentioning in this particular case is that those troops, those quote unquote national troops, Somali national troops, are troops that were specifically trained by the United States. So we are seeing the tactic that has been deployed to everybody's knowledge at this point in the Middle East. We're training troops on the ground. Then ISIS troops or terrorist organizations are popping up out of nowhere. And then, by the way, according to a study done by Columbia, ISIS was created by the United States. That's not conjecture. That's Columbia University saying that. We see these troops being trained by the U.S. Terrorist organizations are also coming out of nowhere. They just also happen to be in the areas where countries have a lot of resources, whether it be oil, cobalt, whatever. Only in those areas. They're not attempting to take over the power of the country, because of course that would probably put them at odds with the Western powers. And we know ISIS can't do anything. Like they can't do anything with that oil. They can't do anything with that cobalt. But the United States and other Western powers can. And we know that the fourth industrial revolution is ramping up. Now, I'm gonna give y'all a little history lesson. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Cecil Rhodes. Cecil Rhodes is actually, believe it or not, the character that Victor Moriarty from Sherlock Holmes was modeled after. Academic, jack of all trades. If you all remember, y'all familiar with the Rhodes Scholarship? That's Cecil Rhodes, the guy who effectively created, quote unquote, apartheid South Africa. Cecil Rhodes wanted to bring the United States back into the fold. And this is reported in the New York Times, by the way, 1912, I want to say it was. It's either 1912 or 1902. But Cecil Rhodes was trying to bring the United States back into Great Britain, the empire of Great Britain, but knew that they couldn't do so directly. They couldn't do it out loud. So they had to come up with creative ways to do so. And they wanted the entire world to effectively be an Anglo-speaking world, an Anglo-cultured world. That's what Cecil Rhodes wanted. So he worked with people like the Rothschilds. He worked with J.P. Morgan. He employed the services of them to bankroll Woodrow Wilson and actually bankroll Teddy Roosevelt and the Bull Moose Party to make sure that Woodrow Wilson won because they knew he was under their control. That was also in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, if you all remember. And unfortunately for the United States and Great Britain at the time, Germany and Russia were actually beating the United States and Great Britain in the Industrial Revolution. So the Industrial Revolution could only be won through beating the hell out of them. So we move forward and we see a bunch of lies put out about both of those countries, specifically Germany, though. Lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. And then the breaking point for the United States to join the war, finally, because obviously some guy named Archduke Franz Ferdinand getting assassinated when he effectively had no power doesn't seem like a legitimate reason to jump into a war, right? I know that's what you all learned in school. And I know a lot of y'all were like, what? Hold up. Y'all telling me the whole world went to war over some Archduke guy? That don't make no sense. It doesn't. Because it wasn't supposed to. And then it all came to a head. The breaking point became the bombing of the Lusitania, which was supposedly a passenger ship. But of course, we know now the CIA had to, make those files available to the public. And we found out that the Lusitania was not a passenger ship. It was a warship. It wasn't even our warship. It was Great Britain's. And it had weapons on it. No civilians. It was a lie that we used to jump into the war. A lie that we used to finally put the nail in the coffin in Germany's credibility. We then beat the hell out of Germany, pretending as if they were evil, which led to what? The Treaty of Versailles, which destroyed their economy, destroyed their military, put them on sanctions, and effectively set the stage for what we then saw to become Nazi Germany. That was how the first Industrial Revolution went. So how do you think this one's going to go? Do you think they're actually going to allow the free market of capitalism to take place in order to let the best man win, like they claim they do with free market capitalism? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to try to win the same way they won in the past. They couldn't beat Germany through engineering and innovation. So they had to beat them into submission in every country that stood in their way. So it looks like they're about to do the same. A lot of people have been warning that this is what the fourth industrial revolution is going to look like. Whenever AOC didn't want to talk about banning fracking or banning the use of oil, but instead doing a tax, a carbon tax, a lot of people were like, hold on, this isn't what we thought about when we thought about the Green New Deal. Yeah, because you weren't supposed to. You're supposed to get used to this idea that you can somehow make the transition an equitable transition, not a transition that only benefits the few who get to benefit from buying up all the industries of alternative resources. I'm talking about an equitable transition. The only way you don't get an equitable transition by allowing oil companies to continue to reap the rewards of the petrodollar in these oil wars, and by forcing us to stay, with these vehicles and these these technologies that use oil. You transition, you let the best man win, or woman. But that's not what AOC's Green New Deal called for. A lot of us warned about that. She even discusses the fourth industrial revolution briefly. And we said there's going to be a very high human cost. And of course, because the human cost is once again not in a European country, not in Australia, not in the United States, but in Black and brown nations, like in Bolivia, like in Africa. Nobody cares. So we're going to talk about it. Somebody got to, right? So we're going to keep up with this. We're going to keep talking about this. We're going to try to keep up with all the things. I mean, Africa has so much stuff going on right now. It's literally hard to keep up with it, but we're going to do our best, okay? So make sure y'all like this video. Make sure you share this video. Make sure you subscribe, of course, but always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.